Tree and the gang are back in the Groundhog Day slasher film Happy Death Day to You. Tree and the whole gang are back in the Groundhog Day slasher film Happy Death Day to You. Tree and the whole gang are back this time in the Groundhog Day meets slasher film Happy Death Day to You. Tree and the gang are back in the sequel that meshes slasher films with Groundhog's Day in Happy Death Day to You. I love the first film way more than I probably should have. The serial killer meets Groundhog's Day is really, really fun. This time we get Tree again in her never-ending day, but did we really need a sequel to Happy Death Day? Now there is a new premise to this film. It has a lot more sci-fi in it than you would have even thought. Well, first off, I didn't think that at all because it wasn't shown in the trailers. But there's a lot of sci-fi element to this. I mean, it reminded me a lot of Project Almanac and Back to the Future. And they reference Back to the Future in this. Now, as much as I really liked the characters and I enjoyed the story of the first one, this one felt tired to me. I mean, as we went along and watching Tree die, and as she's trying to figure out what's going on and what has caused her to be back in her day, again, that whole never-ending day, I just was like, oh, okay, I'm done. I've seen you die. I've seen you die in many different ways, many different unique ways, and now I'm ready to move on with the story. And that was part of the bummer of the film because it didn't really move as quickly as it probably should have towards a resolution. And even once you know what the resolution is, there's still a large chunk of time that happens where it's still repeating to get to that resolution. Happy Death Day to You does have some charm in it, but it doesn't have nearly as much or as much heart as the first film. Throughout this, there is the mystery of who is behind the babyface mask. Now, from the first one, we know who it is and we know all of the scenarios of that. But in this one, because of some of the circumstances, it doesn't necessarily mean that what we knew is true now. There are points that I didn't like because it felt kind of forced. It felt like they were just trying to make this fit into the story, and it didn't really fit in the narrative as it was going. I've heard people talk about this, and I completely agree that part of the bummer of this sequel is that it negates the first film. Now, it would have been cool had they reimagined the first film, to make this sequel, but it's not really like they did that. They just were like, well, no, we're going to write this story and it's going to kind of go, erase that one, and then we're going to move forward with what we're doing. And I don't think it really needed that. The acting is good and the chemistry between the characters is really good also. They do also have some great comedic timing moments. Some of it doesn't always work, but some of it does. Some of the characters are a little bit just, again, tired or even annoying. And I did like some of the deaths too. I mean, some of them were new and some of them we saw in the trailer, which I wish they wouldn't have shown because, the rest of them are just old and we've seen it all before. Because Tree is reliving her day again in this one, I really like that we get to see her ramping up her frustration and just her done with it. And they add a new perspective to it of what happens to her each time she dies. So I did like that part of it in this film as well. Because this is a sequel, it's hard not to compare the two films. And so this one is not nearly as strong of an entry as the first one is. When I think about sequels and doing kind of the same thing again as they did in the first one, I think of Back to the Future and Back to the Future 2. And they reference, like I said, they reference Back to the Future in this sequel. And I think they did that well. Robert Zemeckis did that well because he took the same type of story but then reimagined it and turned it on its head a little bit and then gave it a different spin and added some more to it. In Happy Death Day to You, they just didn't totally do that. I mean, they took the central story, tweaked it a little bit, erased what had happened previously, but didn't necessarily improve upon what they had done previously. Does that make sense? While you can get some enjoyment out of Happy Death Day to You, I think you're better off sticking with the original. There's no sex or nudity, but there is profanity and, of course, a whole lot of violence. I give Happy Death Day to You 2.5 out of 5 couches. Did you enjoy the first one? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.